And we're recording Michigan Derby Podcast, episode number 9. Sponsored by Blade Steel Supply. I say it once during the episode. Special guest tonight, Matt Songalewski. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Coming off a third place finish at Mayhem. How was the build? What can you tell me about it?
The build wasn't too bad. It was a little bit different than what I'm used to, where me and my dad are used to doing a little bit heavier stuff, but we decided it was kind of going to be a good time just for us to go out there and build a little bit of softer build. That way it wasn't as hard for us, and just go out there and try to have a good time.
I did notice something. I did go out on the track afterwards and look at your guys' cars. Can I ask you this? Is it just as mentally draining to build a bone stock car as it is like a pro mod heavy build car?
Honestly, as we got into it, it was. We tried to think of something different, any way to make the cars better, and we realized it was just as hard to build these bone stock cars as our mod cars, because we don't know much about them.
I gotcha, absolutely. You think that you're going to build something, it's not going to take as much time, and then you get into it and you're like, man, I should redo this, or we should, reconsider that, or we should try this instead of that. It can be, almost as thoughtful as a heavy build.
Exactly.
So, when you guys were building the cars, did you, when you guys decided to go down there, what was your approach on, on driving wise? Did you guys have like cause Mayhem has the time limit, but you're in a bone stock car. So how did you guys balance that out between trying to get it done and then also, trying to preserve the car for the feature?
Honestly, I tried to go out thinking that I'm going to drive the pace of the show. I don't think one car could make or break the show. It kind of had to be a team effort. So I kind of went out there thinking I'm going to drive however everyone else is driving. If it was aggressive driving heat or feature, I would have been out there driving aggressive. If it was slow paced and we were going to run the time limit, then that's what I was going to do.
I got you. Yeah, I was just messing with the volume there real quick. I apologize to the audience, but as far as the time limit goes, was that in your head the whole time, or was it just like I'm just going to run the pace and just go from there?
With being in the first heat, I really didn't want to run the time limit. Like, obviously no one did, but it was in my head quite a bit, and then they added the extra 10 minutes for us, and going in, I honestly didn't think it was going to run 40 minutes for a heat. I figured it would have went down to 4 cars out of 10 relatively quickly.
I'll be honest with you, sitting in the stands, it didn't seem like 40 minutes went by. They red flagged it and said you're at the 10-minute mark, and we're like, wow, how's this going to wind up,
Felt the same in the car.
Right. So, what do you prefer? Like, we're going to get to this later, but of course I gotta, you guys have a history of building like some pretty heavy build cars, but I guess now that you've ran one and done pretty well, what do you think of the bone stock builds?
I definitely like my mod cars better. I just like the actual build itself, but I didn't mind the bone stock builds. They're a lot simpler and just a lot less time consuming.
I gotcha. So you guys were part of a serious, the ending of that show was a serious dogfight. When you guys were getting right down to the end there, did you feel it in your chest, or were you just kind of calm and collected and there to finish the job, or what was going through your head in the car there when it was getting right down to the end?
When it was getting right down to the end, I was a little all over the place. There was a couple times I see people wide open, just hoping that it wasn't me on the other end of it, and that other time just kind of driving around I don't know, hoping to get down to the end. I saw that my dad was out there still, and I was honestly hoping it would come down to me and him. And the way the cars looked, I was pretty confident it was going to, but just not what happened.
Hey, I gotta tell you what, man. Brett Petro turned it up and just started making junk, and the entire crowd was just like, whoa. Like, you could just feel the tone in the audience when he did that, and we were just like, who is going to win this show? And then your dad, like, you were stuck, and then I think Ryan knocked you loose, and then he stalled.
Yep.
And we were just, it was back and forth. And then Brett, I believe he hit another car, and his front end came, his bumper was higher than his roof, and we're just looking like, who is going to make the last hit in this thing? I mean, that had to have been very exciting or nerve-wracking, or, I mean, how would you describe that being in the car?
I was getting pretty excited right there at the end. Like, I know all the drivers that were right there in the top 5, 6, 7, whatever it was, and it was just an all-around good time right there. Like, we were derbying. It wasn't, we weren't out there bagging at the end. It was downright derbying. It was just a great time. But it got pretty exciting. Especially having it turned up like that. It was a great time at the end, both for the crowd and in the car.
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing but respect for the way that you guys, especially Ryan, the way that he went out there. I mean, he ran hard the whole time, and I mean, you know, bone stock wise, did the car bend? Yeah, but you guys built those cars so the car could bend, and it honestly didn't matter. I never thought I'd see the day, but like, you know, just instinctively as a derby driver, you try to build the car to where it won't bend, and kind of figured out a way to, when the car bends, it almost doesn't matter. Or is that kind of something you had in your head, or was it kind of something a little bit different?
We tried building the cars to where, to the best of our ability. I've never thought of myself as a driver, but just I've watched my dad build these cars forever, like anything in the shop, and we've always tried to build the best car we could for that show. We try to build the cars to win the show, but I'm not necessarily the driver to win the show.
I'm going to counter that. I think you're a pretty good driver. I really do. And I'll give you a couple more things on that as we go. But I've watched you drive, man. I mean, you know, you're usually right down there. I know Celine. There was a long time there that you ran in the wagon, and I'm not sure what went on, but the way that you were driving, I thought you had it won. I'll be honest with you.
That show, I actually had too small of a gas tank. Not watching that show for as long as I did, growing up, that show's never lasted over 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And at the hour and 13 point, my 7.5 gallon tank wasn't enough.
I got you. I think CJ ran out of gas too, actually. A couple of guys did.
Yep.
I don't think anybody expected that show to go that long.
Nope.
And it just seems like you kind of, I don't know, it's almost the same dynamic down in Portland now that Jack has big shows, only it's just in a different spot. You know, you're running against greatness, and I guess this time you know to bring a bigger tank, I guess.
Yep, I hope not to run out of fuel again. I went out and bought me a 19.5 gallon tank after that.
I did ask Ryan how big his tank was, because myself, I've almost ran out of gas. And my tank is a 22, 23 gallon, and I've almost ran that out of gas before. And the way that Ryan was running over the weekend, I thought, man, he's going to run out of gas. But
yeah, that's the worst part about it.
Definitely a market for bigger gas tanks out there, and not from sandbagging. I mean, it's from RPMs and running the motors, man. Yep. I mean, you guys run hard. And you guys go through fuel. But it's just, the way the dynamic of the builds are changing is like guys are actually needing bigger gas tanks now because the motors are sucking that much fuel. You know, a 5-gallon boat tank used to last, like you said, and then now it's like you need a 15, 20-gallon tank or you're going to run out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. So any other big factors or anything big you want to talk about from Mayhem? Or, I mean, did you guys, I mean, how'd it go overnight working on the cars since they let you guys work on the cars? I know I came up to you there at night and you guys were going to run 9-wire. So how did the car prep go after the heat was over?
It wasn't bad. We worked on Joe's car for a while. We had 3 cars to work on.
Yeah.
And we figured out over the weekend it's too much having that many cars to work on. No matter how many guys we have, we only have the equipment to do so much. So we kind of went from one car to the next. But with the time allowed, it wasn't enough time to be able to rebuild 3 cars.
So
I went through and
go ahead.
Joe worked on his car until about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Then we went to my dad's and then mine. So there was a lot more that could have been done, but just didn't have the time and equipment to do it.
I gotcha. Were either of the 3 hurt pretty bad after the heat, or?
No. The only thing really wrong after the heat, Joe's power steering pump went out.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, it was all 9-wire and just messing with some sheet metal.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's better than having the bumper, you know, 2 feet higher than the firewall coming back to the pits and trying to get ready for the feature. But at least you guys got to work on them the night before and didn't have to wait until 7 a.m. to get your cars out, you know?
Yeah, that was definitely a plus, being able to at least start on one of them. Because that 12:30 point, it comes up quick when we had to be through retech.
Can I just point something out real quick? I mean, you guys, Ryan, and you grew up with Ryan, and then Joe Nash is your guys' next door neighbor. I just want to say that that section of that street is probably the highest coveted piece of property derby wise in the nation. I mean, you guys all share ideas and come together and build just the nastiest rides that, I mean, you know, I mean, anywhere you guys run, you usually have the baddest car there.
I'd normally say we're about average compared to a lot of guys. There was a lot of real nice cars down at that show, and at all these shows we go to. I wouldn't say ours are any better than anyone else's.
Oh, you guys are so humble, man. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say the same exact thing about you guys, and anytime Ryan hears it, he's like, no, you know, I'm just doing my best. And you guys have you guys are such good sports about it. It's just, you guys have a lot of respect from a lot of people, you know. Yeah, that was a heck of a finish at Mayhem. Let's take it back, man. Let's go back to when you first started derbying. What age were you when you first started derbying?
I was 14, the first derby I ran.
What kind of car was it? What show was it?
I ran at the Monroe County Fair, and it was I believe it was a 90 Crown Vic.
A 1990?
Yep.
Yep. Square body?
Yep.
Okay. And was that a 6 o'clock show or 9 p.m. show?
That was a 6 o'clock show. That was the first year they went to their stock rules.
Okay. I think I missed it. What year was it?
2015.
2015. Okay. And just so the audience knows, what age are you now, man? You're a young guy.
I'm 20.
Oh, I thought you were a couple years older than that even. 20 years old, gets third at Mayhem with a stacked driver's list. That is nothing short of impressive. Not a lot of people can say that. and I'm just going to point that out for the audience. But anyways, so I was at the Monroe County Fair this year, and I watched the show, and they have a format. They have a 6 p.m. show and they have a 9 p.m. show, and the show was on Tuesday, I believe, right?
Yep.
So back in 2015, I guess, like, how big was the show then compared to what it is now? Was it bigger now, or was it bigger then?
The 6 p.m. show is definitely bigger now. That first year there was probably 30 cars compared to, I think there was about 60 this year.
It was a big show this year. It absolutely was. It was a really fun show to watch too.
Yeah, it was a good time. That was a real good time this year.
So you're rolling out onto the track in your first derby car. You're going to run your first derby. What's going through your mind?
Oh, I was pretty nervous as I was pulling on the track. I didn't really know exactly what to expect. I've watched that show for I don't know how long. I was pretty excited to be able to go on the track. Even now, I still get butterflies in my stomach as I'm pulling onto the track.
Hey, if you don't get butterflies it's pulling out on the track and you don't get that rush, let me know, because I don't know of any driver that doesn't. So what wound up happening? How'd you do?
They take top 3 there. They run it all the way down, so you can either pull off the track or you don't. It came down to 3 cars. I pulled off, went to the feature, and my dad helped me get the car all fixed up in the couple minutes we had. Went back out there and ended up placing 5th overall.
Okay, that's not bad for your first time ever driving. Did Ryan give you any tips on driving, or did he just kind of let you go and figure it out for yourself?
He gave me a lot of advice through the build, through just on the way to the track. Anytime he could, he's always feeding me whatever kind of information he can to try to help me. That's
a good thing. I figured he would. But again, he's more of a, like we said earlier, he's more of a heavy builder, so I'm not sure if, like, coming into it when I started derbying, my dad was like, things are a lot different, in this show than what I'm used to. So I guess see how hard you can run or see how much the car takes. And he just, was like that. So I didn't know I know Ryan's ran stock cars way back in the day, but I wasn't sure if it was more of a see how it happens this day and age, or if it was more of a you want to do this, or this.
No, really, we talked a lot about driving, what I should be doing. Like, he taught me, like, hey, you want to aim for wheels, you want to do this, you don't get anything from hitting people in the doors. We just kind of talk more about kind of that kind of stuff. Gotcha.
So like more of a general kind of,
yeah,
don't back over the wall type stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
I gotcha. So did he run a car in the 6 o'clock show that year, or were you just there by yourself?
Nope, I was there by myself. I don't think he ran at all that year. He got away from the fair for a little while there.
Okay.
And he just started there again just a couple years ago.
I gotcha. Yeah, I did watch him run this year, and he put on a heck of a show like he always does, in the 9 o'clock show there with the heavier build, and
yeah.
He just is the epitome of having no fear out on the track. It's just if there was one way to describe it, it's just watch a video of him driving.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he was having a good time out there this year. He wanted to go out there and get all his wide open out before we went to Mayhem. That way he didn't junk the car.
Gotcha. So was Monroe the only show that you ran there for a while, or did you guys venture out pretty quickly?
That was the only show I ran for a couple years. I ran that in 15, 16, and 17. Oh no, that first year I ran at the Wayne County Fair also. That's what I did. We were allowed a passenger. I took one of the 9 o'clock show cars from the fair. It was a buddy of mine, actually my teammate from Spring Explosion, Eric Mack.
Okay.
He let me borrow his 9 o'clock show car, and I mounted a passenger seat in it. And my dad rode with me there. And it came down to me, Joe Nash, and Dunk. And I ended up winning that show.
Nice. Was that your first win?
It was.
Okay. Now, Wayne County, is that more of a stock build, or was there a lot of modifications you guys had to do to the car?
That year it was a run what you brung.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So the car I had was more of a pro mod or almost a 5-foot car.
Gotcha. Is it still that way over there?
They actually have 2 separate classes now. Same as Monroe. They actually just call it a Monroe cleanup class. So they have a 6 o'clock class and a 9 o'clock show class.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did hear some about that show this year. I know that's like right in Dunk's backyard, Wayne County.
Yep.
Who promotes that?
That's Unique Motorsports.
Oh, okay, Jim Trout. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I have not been to that show personally, but I have heard a few things about it, and it sounded like this year they had a pretty good turnout.
Yeah. There was quite a few cars, both shows. There was 7 for the 6 o'clock show, but there was probably 15 of them for the late show class.
Yeah, I gotcha. All through the summer, and I don't know if COVID had a lot to do with this or not, but it seems like every show that I went to, it was either standing room only or you couldn't even get in. Like, I do know, like, Mount Pleasant, I was there, was standing room only. That same night, they were turning people away in Munger. The next weekend, we went to Imlay City, and we couldn't even get into that show. I'm trying to think of the other shows I was at this year. Cadillac was packed back in June when I ran, and then Monroe was just crazy. But, I mean, can Monroe seat? I mean, that place has to be able to seat like 15,000 people. It is so big.
Yeah, that is a huge fairgrounds and a grandstand area. It's a real nice setup they have there.
And it was,
I don't know.
It was 85%, 90% full.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of people there this year.
That just blew my mind. And they had that show on a Tuesday, I believe, because from what I understand, it's more of like we're going to have the stands packed on Saturday anyways. So we're going to try to bring a crowd Tuesday by having the Derby that day.
Yep. They have the Derby there on Tuesday every year. But yeah, they draw in quite a crowd no matter what day of the week it is.
I gotcha. And I think that's the biggest fair in Michigan down there.
Yeah, they have a very nice fair down here.
The local following down there is just huge. So you guys had 60 cars in the 6 p.m. show this year, and they were all local guys. Like I personally did not know. I mean, I knew you, I knew Mark, I knew Smallwoods, but because they go around other places, but most of the guys there were all local guys who are just as derby as anybody, but they get to run their local fair, which and a lot of guys run one show a year, but that's there's so much talent down there because that show is so big. There's such a following.
Yeah, there's so many guys around this area that just love to do it. And they come out here and they run this one show a year, and that's what they do. They spend the whole next year building this one car to go out to the Monroe County Fair.
Yeah, that's a huge show, absolutely. You guys had a wagon in Saline in 2018. So, like, I don't know if I want to reiterate this question or not, but when did you guys start like venturing out? Like, I know obviously Ryan's been around, but like as far as you, like, when did you start running out of town?
The first time I ran out of town was in 2018.
Okay.
I wouldn't say, like, I ran Sumter early in the year, but that, I wouldn't really consider that out of town. That's only probably 25 minutes from my house.
Gotcha.
I took a square body there, took the same car to Manchester a month later. That way I could qualify for championship.
Yep, that was USA show. Yep, I remember that.
Yep. And then I ran in Saline.
With the wagon.
Yep. Other than that, I don't think I ran like out of state up until the Wicked Team show.
I gotcha. Okay, so the Wicked Team show this year was your first out of state show, or last year? Sorry.
Yep. That was my first time going out of state to run.
Okay, what was that like?
That was a great time. I've gone down there the past 4 or 5 years to help dunk, and I always talked about going and running there. So it just looked like a great time, and I'm a big fan of the team shows. But to be able to actually go down there with Dunk and then Trevor Daly, that was a great time.
You guys were definitely one of my top picks. How did you like building the car? How'd the build go? How'd the trip go?
I love building the car. Had a great weekend. I have no complaints about that weekend at all.
Brandon Dixon is just the promoter. If I had to give him one word, I would say lenient and very easygoing.
Yeah, Brandon's a great guy. I loved running his shows. I went and ran Redneck Rumble after that. I'd go back and run again. I really wanted to go back this year to run this team show, but he ended up canceling it. Or I would have been back there this year.
Yeah, he had great shows there for a while. I'm not sure. I'd have to message him and just ask him. I mean, what's his future plans? But the Wicked Team show this year is canceled. It was a good show. That was a good show for a long time. You guys, third place, I believe. Yeah,
third place. I got third, and then Justin Buchanan, Brett Petcho, and Brent Seeger, they were second with Prochaska, Ty Richards, and Bill Miller first.
And those guys would be really tough to kind of dismantle, I guess.
Yeah.
They've all got countless wins,
Yeah, I just felt great just being right there at third. That was the coolest thing to me, being able to be right there with those guys.
Yeah, you drove it right down too. I believe Trevor got stuck on the wall earlier on in the feature, and then you and Dunk took her home. Well, third place.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good time. I mean, to see a Michigan team go down there, and that's not a Michigan show. I mean, Portland has more Michigan guys than any other big show. Evansville, not so much. I mean, the 03 Nation guys, but they had hard luck, and I believe that was the only other Michigan team there.
Yeah, I think that was it. But Portland, I know, has a lot of Michigan guys just because how close we are, and it's a Jack show, so I think that draws in a lot of Michigan guys. But yeah, down there we don't see too many of them. Right.
Same thing with Redneck Rumble. Redneck Rumble had a lot of Michigan guys at it this year. How did you fare out down there? I honestly don't remember.
I didn't do too well down there. I didn't look over the car as much as I needed to.
Gotcha.
We bought Trevor Daly's car, my teammate, for Joe, and we put a lot of time into putting that car back together for him. And all I did was go through and I changed out my front suspension because I bent 2 spindles and an A-arm. But I ended up shearing the output shaft off the gearbox, which I think was previously cracked from the team show.
Gotcha.
And I didn't notice it, so I lost steering relatively early, and then ended up just about losing the rear end out from underneath of it.
Now that you say that, I do remember that. Yep. Pre-run car. Is Joe Nash starting to maybe venture out to the big shows more?
Yeah, he came, obviously ran over the weekend with us, and then he went and ran the Redneck Rumble with me. He's kind of getting into it a little bit more. He ran Mayhem with my dad back in 2012. But I think that was in Spring X in 14, sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, he was. He was around a lot back in the time frame that you're describing. I remember they used to go up to Kalkaska, and Joe Nash he'd either win or get second or third up there.
Yeah, I think even at Mayhem, Joe's one of the more underrated drivers, just because a lot of these guys they don't know him, like out of state. And I think that he's one of the better drivers out there. They just like, even when we went to Sturgis, those guys they don't know who he is.
Right. That's I mean, that's why I wanted to point out that living on your guys' street like that Ryan and you and Joe Nash are all there together, and a lot of people don't realize who Joe Nash is, but he's right up there with just about anybody on the list at Mayhem this weekend.
Yeah, he's definitely the driver out of all three of us.
I got you. And like I say, I'm pretty sure he's won the Monroe 9 p.m. show a few times.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many times he's won that show.
Yeah, he's definitely a contender at any show he's at. But the Monroe show, for some reason, as big as it is, it doesn't get very much publicity because it's the promoter or the promoters down there. They don't have any other shows, so a lot of drivers aren't really eyeballing the rules or really following what's going on, because like promoters like Jack and Todd and Jim, like everybody's looking at what they're doing because they have their show in their town. So you might go run a car out of town for the same guy, and you're kind of more concerned about what's going on because this guy has more shows. But Monroe is like a standalone type. It's just got like a different dynamic down there. It's all local guys, and it's just weird. You don't see any out of towners. I mean, it was literally like it was like going back in time like 30 years. Like, it was all local guys. The build was bone stock, 4-point cage, no skid steer tires allowed. No cradles, just a bone stock. I mean, some of the cars out there had windshields in them.
Yeah, it all depends on who it is. There's some guys that go out there and knock the windows out of it and go and run, and then some guys build right to the max of the rules. But like you said, it is a bone stock show. Like
building to the max of the rules means putting a Chevy motor in.
pretty much.
That's just so the audience knows. Like, when Matt says that's a 6 p.m. show at Monroe. It's very, very stock.
Yeah, we can pretty much change body mounts, put a cage in it. We can have loaded bumpers and a Chevy motor. That's about it. Stock rear ends. We put a Chevy rear end, whatever, but no aftermarket axles, no nothing.
Do they pull the axles out and look at them?
No, they don't.
Gotcha.
So
are you guys allowed to run sliders?
No, we are not.
Wow. I mean, stock means stock, right?
Yep.
So, what do you think of that? I mean, would you? Obviously, you're more into the big, I guess, the specially made parts, like sliders, and you're able to go run the Wicked Team show in place, so you've got access to parts and knowledge and all that. But I mean, as far as like, if let's say, for example, Allegan or Imlay City or Richmond County Fair went to that, what do you think would happen across Michigan if everything went back to that?
To like the bone stock?
Yeah. Kind of setting aside the fact that you personally can get like big money parts and stuff like that. To where like the more local guy who builds his car behind a tree gets to run, you know, what do you think would happen across Michigan if it went back to kind of the similar rules to how Monroe are?
I think those kind of rules draw in a lot of guys that just don't have the money or the ability, the parts, or to run these the bigger motors, the just these bigger parts, the cradles. You draw in a lot more guys. I think but a lot of guys also love that kind of build, so it deters a lot of people also. But I think it would bring a lot more people out.
Let me ask you this. Now, when you build that car for 6 p.m., you can't have a rear end brace. So do you guys risk bending a 10 bolt, or do you guys just run the stock Ford one? There's kind of you got to kind of pick and choose. I mean, do you want a gear? Or do you want to put money into a Ford rear end that might break, or do you want to risk bending a 10 bolt? Where do you stand with that?
I've always ran a GM rear end, just hoping that I don't bend it. I ran one for a long time, the same 12 bolt that I had, and my buddy actually just bent it this year, and I'm realizing how hard they are to find anymore.
That's my point, you know. So, like, I welded my rear end up that I have ran in pretty much every car that I've ran since 2015. I welded it up on a Sunday. I just took it's a homemade brace. My rear end is not like an A2Z or anything high dollar, and it's held up just fine. I mean, what would you think about letting guys do that, or do you think it would turn guys away?
That's the reason, or that show, the fair hasn't gone to a rear end brace, because they don't want to deter people. But I liked what Jack used to do before he was allowing any rear end. We were allowed one brace, which I think is a great idea, just because these rear ends, they aren't getting any easier to come by. And that, I don't think that's going to make or break the show, but it's going to save you from bending or breaking this rear end that you can't replace.
When you say one brace, what do you mean by that? Because you'd have to jog my memory a little bit.
He used to allow either a back brace or top or bottom. You're allowed one brace on it. Just because of the fact that these rear ends are getting so hard to come by.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that, you know, I just wanted to have that discussion with you because I don't talk, you know, like I say, I mean, I think you, Mark, and Smallwoods are pretty much, I mean, the more out there guys that run more out of town than anybody else really from Monroe. So I just wanted to have that conversation with you and have that discussion with, you know, since you run both. I mean, you know, nobody from out of town runs there, and you run both. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's the reason they don't allow anything, just because they think if they put that in the rules that you're allowed like one brace, it'll deter people like these guys that are going out there knocking the windows out of a car and going and running. Right.
You know, at Mayhem this year, like over the weekend, there was I got to get the terminology right. So there was like a street stock where guys wired the doors shut and ran the Ford motors. And I was telling my dad in the stands, I says, it doesn't matter what class or what derbies, minivans, you know, and I made the point to Dad because he's from the 90s, back when that's what guys did, you know. So what I was telling him was, you know, you can leave the Ford engines in the cars and wire the doors shut, you're still going to have a 45-minute heat, you know. So, and then you put Chevy small blocks in it, like the class that you guys ran, the Pro Stock, and the heat is still 45 minutes long. It's just, it always seems to equate out. And then the Pro Mod feature was shorter than the Pro Stock feature was. The heavier built cars were junk quicker than the ones with no welding done.
Yeah, it's all about the driving.
I mean, it's kind of like, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it more a guy wants to build his car not to bend, or are people just playing competitive enough that they're going to find a way to make it work no matter what? or are there just people out there that just would never run a bone stock car? But I mean, Ryan proved this weekend that he's going to run no matter what. I mean, I never ever thought I'd see him get in a stock car.
Yeah, it was definitely a change for him.
I know we've mentioned that, but I guess every driver's different on what they prefer. You know, I guess if there wasn't any other option, I guess I would go run a Ford motor in a car, but I guess I just come from the era where that was just, you know, looked down upon, and that was just disgusting. You know, nobody would ever want to do that.
Yep.
But you see you watch it happen in the class that has that kind of build, that heat still runs 45 minutes to an hour long. You know, it's like, wow, maybe it's not so bad after all.
Yeah, those guys definitely have a lot of knowledge there, because I've never tried it. I have no idea what it would take to be able to run one of those, like the wiring harness and everything. These small block Chevys are all I know. All I need is 3 wires to be able to run it.
Yeah, same here. I went LS just for the performance aspect of it. You know, you get a little bit more motor for your buck. And I run electric fuel pump, so there's one wire. You got a coil wire.
Yep.
You know, it's just like a small block Chevy. You wire them up the same way. I carve it, and I think I've got one extra wire based on what a small block would be. You know.
Yep.
But it's just amazing to me that those guys were out there shifting on the column. They were using column shifters, and somehow, some way, those cars still ran that long. And they were hitting. I mean, they were hitting hard. Those guys get going 20, 30, 40 miles an hour and hit, and they back up. And I looked in the cars to see, and they were using column shifters.
Yeah, that amazes me, how they do it.
But it's just the dynamic of Derby today is just, I mean, you know, if you're one who wants to build the snot out of your car and likes to build a nice piece and likes to run hard, there's a class for you. If you're a guy that just wants to swap the engine in and weld a bumper on, you know, there's a class for you. If there's a guy that wants to knock the windows out and wire the doors shut, there's a class for you, you know?
Yeah, this time there's a class for everyone out there. No matter if you want to run a bone stock car all the way up to the 5-foot cars. The options are pretty much unlimited there.
So kind of going back a little bit, I mean, did you ever, with all these options available, and you're a youngster coming in, which I feel a little bit kind of remiss saying that. I mean, you're not a youngster. You've made your name. I mean, but age-wise, you know, you've got all these options. I mean, what's your outlook on Derby for the next 10 or 15 years, being 20 years old right now?
Honestly, I haven't really thought about it too much. I plan on doing about the same thing I've been doing for years. He's watching what my dad does. He's building these new Fords, and that's about it. I know my dad, when he talked to you, he talked about all these cars he used to run, these wagons and Impalas and everything else, but this is what I grew up with, is building these Crown Vics.
So
that's all I can remember.
How did the wagon and Celine, did that kind of throw you off a little bit, or was that how was that building that compared to, you're used to building Crown Vics, like you say? What was it like building a wagon?
I bought that used just because I found it, and my dad thought it'd be a great car for that show. So I went out and bought it, and pretty much for the experience, because I never thought that I'd be able to run one again, or like ever. Like, I wouldn't have the opportunity to do it. They're so expensive, and they're getting so hard to find. I didn't think I'd be able to run one ever.
Yeah,
that's why I did.
No, I just wanted to say that, you know, I've derbied since 2006, and they were just starting to outlaw them at local county fair show level. So I never built one. I never ran one. I don't understand them. I mean, they're all body behind the frame, and being a sedan guy, it's almost like, man, there's no frame back there, you know?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, how did it hold up compared to a Ford?
It held up pretty good. I was real happy with it. It really didn't seem too much different from the front of my Ford to that. I don't know, that I think that was a lot of my inexperience there, not knowing. I didn't run too much up until that point to know the difference between it. 'Cause like you said, about it's all body in the back. Like I never really looked at wagons too much up until that point, and like being underneath of it, like this frame's missing a whole side right here, and the door rail. Like it was just different for me.
I'll tell you this. I mean, I've seen them run, but I've never had one in my shop. So there was a driver quality one at River City Rampage last year, and I crawled under it and look at the wagon and see how these things are, you know. So I crawled under it, and I had to crawl in like into my waist to look at the frame, and I'm like, why do guys even derby these? There's no frame back here. It's like, what's going on? And then you see like the back will get waxed off, like the body will get waxed right off of it. And those guys, they either run like the leaf spring, like the frame horn sticking out, or they have that brace back there that kind of acts like a bumper, and it's about 3 feet shorter than it was when it came in.
Yep. Yeah, that car definitely taught me a lot. And then after that, I kind of started looking at it more and learning. So at that point in time, I couldn't really tell too much of a difference between the two, besides it took me a lot longer to turn that around than it took me to turn my Ford around.
Wagons do have a longer wheelbase. You know, sedans, like the battle back in the day used to be a wagon versus sedan. And it's this way now with like Fords versus old iron, is if you can you whip that Ford around against an old iron and outdrive that old iron. And then that's how sedans used to be against wagons, was the guy in the sedan had to be able to get in position quicker than the guy in the wagon. You know, and the guy in, you know, because a wagon's just going to crush a sedan, so you had to be able to outdrive it. And it's kind of that same way now with Fords versus old iron.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
What would you think about building like a Deuce and a Quarter or an Impala?
Honestly, it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, I think, right now. I think if I was here with my dad's knowledge to help me, I would be all right. But building it by myself, it would be definitely be a learning experience for me.
I got you. I'm not picking on you. We're just having a discussion, man. This is good stuff.
But I don't really have much knowledge on building the old iron. So it would definitely be a lot different for me. Like I said, that wagon I bought used, so I didn't do a whole lot there. So I really don't know what to do, what not to do, how to change it from how I build my Ford.
No, I got you. Absolutely. And, you know, based on obviously how you guys did down at Mayhem, you guys have Fords, if not completely figured out, darn close, you know? You guys know what you're doing.
I try to change something on every build, make them a little bit better. Like my Lincoln for Mayhem was a lot different from my Lincoln from Spring Explosion. Same build, same rules, same everything, but I learned a lot from April until now about that build.
I'm just going to point out that I did notice, you know, I try to have respect for drivers on the podcast. I don't want you guys to talk about personal tricks that took you guys years to learn, and then we're just going to give all that information away, because I'm a builder and I don't want guys like, you know, snooping on my stuff. But I will say that I did notice just countless things on your guys' cars that were just placed perfectly. And, you know, somebody that has built a few would know, you know, kind of, okay, I know what that's doing. Like, I know why this is here. Okay. I didn't think about doing that. And just for a build that's not supposed to be like that intensive, the detail that goes into your guys' cars is just astronomical.
Everything we do to these cars, we has a purpose.
Yes, everything.
There's nothing that we're gonna do that just doesn't have a purpose.
Yeah, I'm gonna point out that as hard as Ryan ran with the back of his car, he knew that was okay. You know.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that, and I went, it bent, yeah, but it didn't,
Yeah, it's going to in these
Right.
bone stock cars.
Right.
They're gonna give at some point.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's just, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around. I almost need to consider quit doing podcasts right after a show because I keep going back to the stuff that happens over the weekend, and I sound like I'm, repeating myself a lot, but I just want to point that out again. I mean, all right. I learned a lot by walking up to your guys' cars, and I was like, okay, and like, it's almost hard to describe that feeling when it's like looking at your guys' cars this weekend for me was like going to my first big show and seeing like all the stuff that you see. So you guys are always like cutting edge and always like, in a way, like at Blizzard Bash, you guys break the internet. Like that's kind of how it was for me. Like there was just stuff that I just never would have thought of, and I was like, wow, okay, like you guys know exactly what you're doing. But that's a compliment, I'm just saying what I think,
Honestly, going there, looking at a lot of the cars there, like I said earlier, I almost consider these cars like maybe just at average, at just about the same as every other car there. I think they were all a lot of the cars that we went up against were real hard, and I was real surprised with how hard a lot of the cars were for the bone stock builds.
There's almost like this factor of, okay, I'm gonna do this, and this is what I have in mind, and then you go look at somebody else's car and they don't have it done, so it kind of tricks you there for a minute. It's like, is there a reason they didn't do it? Like, do they know what I'm thinking? And then somebody else comes up to your car and they like, oh my God, you did that or whatever. So there's always like this constant insecurity about your build, It's like, is this really necessary? Did I really need to do, did other people already do this and they don't do it anymore? Is there a reason nobody else did it? Or do I really actually have something here that other people are going to copy?
Yeah, I definitely I like walking around looking at all the different builds there. Just because you learn so much by looking at everybody else's builds. Like, I don't necessarily want to copy anything that anybody does. You learn so much, what works, what doesn't work, what you wish you wanted to do. Like, man, I should have done that.
Right.
Or I wish I would have thought about doing that. And it's real cool being able to look at all these different cars, different builds.
It is, and that, what we're talking about is the magic of Demo Derby. That's what makes it fun right there,
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to go to our last segment, Michigan Derby podcast. Great discussion, man. You guys are fun to hang out with and fun to talk to, and we're gonna move on to what we call the Big Ten. So let me get it coming up on my phone here. Are you a sports fan, sir?
I wouldn't really consider myself a sports fan.
Not a lot of drivers are, and I figured more drivers than not would have like a competitive nature, like always watching sports and watching competition and stuff. But I'm noticing that, I mean, it's Derby, it all goes into the Derby car.
I don't have time to do it.
Right.
Or watch anything.
I got you. All right. Well, the Big Ten, Michigan State. We're all from Michigan up here, playing the Big Ten Conference. There's 14 teams. So to mimic that, I've got a Big Ten list of 14 questions just to get a little bit of personal information about the driver before we close out the night. Matt, what's your favorite place to visit in Michigan?
Honestly, let's see. I kind of like just going really anywhere up north, just out of town, just out of the city. I don't really have a real particular spot. I don't like being in the city. Just kind of being
So you guys, so in Michigan, you guys are in Monroe, so that's kind of tucked up underneath Detroit. Does Detroit have a lot of influence down there, or not really?
Not a whole lot, no.
You guys are never in Detroit, never have any business to do there or anything?
No, yeah, I go to Detroit just like anyone would go anywhere. Just if I found a car, I'd go pick up, or if there's somewhere I wanted to go to eat in that town. But there's nothing that really draws me there. I don't really go to too many like sporting events, so.
No, I got you. Right. Have you ever been to the Dream Cruise in Detroit?
No, I have not.
Okay. Just wondering. Now, when you say up north, what do you consider up north?
I don't know. I've been up to Lewiston a couple times, but anywhere kind of up in that area.
Lewiston. I'm not really sure where that is.
Or like, I've been up like in the UP a couple times. That's real nice up there too.
I got
like
you.
Up by Jason Brezit.
Yep.
Like around his area.
I got you. Yeah, that's no man's land up there. That is definitely up north.
Yeah.
Definitely up north.
There's nothing up there. That's nice.
I got you. Okay. Mad Dog or Winter?
Winter.
Okay. There's been discrepancies on Mad Dogs, and Winter is more guaranteed, I guess.
Yeah, my dad's definitely the Mad Dog, but I've definitely been more of a go out there and try to win.
I got you.
Okay.
All right. You're building the car. You got some music playing. What are you listening to? Metallica or Garth Brooks? Rock and roll or country?
Both.
Both.
A little bit of a mix. Yeah.
You're a cultured man. He has good taste. All right. Okay. So we've touched on this, and I brought this up before we started the podcast. We have talked about this already, but new or old iron? New. Yep. And I just got that question there in case we don't talk about it during the podcast, which most of the time we do, but it is what it is. So, heavy build or bone stock? What do you think there?
Heavy build.
Okay. So you like the more heavy build cars then. So
Yeah, I definitely liked my like Wicked car. I like that build.
Okay.
More than the bone stock.
I got you. So you like to weld a little bit more than not.
Yep.
Okay. And we have touched on this too. Favorite kind of car? Crown Vic.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. What year Crown Vic?
Typically 98 to 02. For some reason, I've been running these 90s Lincolns quite a bit lately. I really like them. But
is that on purpose, or is that just what you had? Oh yeah, is that on purpose, or just what you had laying around?
I had a 90s Lincoln laying around and I decided to run it at Spring X. And Megan ran a 90s Lincoln at Blizzard Bash back in 18. And I ran it 5 times after that. And that was a bone stock car that I just kept fixing. So I was just a big fan of them. I had another one at the house. So I had the option between that and a 9802. And I decided just to stick with those Lincolns because I was having pretty good luck with them.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this. What do you think about the 03s?
I like them for the heavy builds. My dad, I think, has a lot of that figured out. But me as much, I like building my 9802s over the 03.
I got you. I just wanted to ask you that because Ryan builds 03s like crazy, but I just want to see what your thought was. Sorry, I got to. Okay. All right. You just got third at Metal Mayhem. You just won a show. You just won you're celebrating. Are you on beer or whiskey?
Neither. I'm 20 years old.
You're 20 years old. You're my first underage podcast I've had. Good answer there. And I just want to disclose, me and Matt have not gotten drunk together. He is one. You're probably one of, I don't know, half a dozen drivers in this whole state I haven't gotten drunk with, but you're one of them, man. Oh, Jesus. All right. All right. So, what is your Derby number and why?
It's 78. I was out in my garage one day. Me and my buddy used to build these little box derby cars. That was just what I happened to paint on the side of my car, and it kind of stuck.
I got you. Okay.
There wasn't a real particular reason I picked that number.
I got you. Hey, some guys have stories and some guys don't. Some guys, that's all over the place. That's always a fun question to ask,
It happens to be the year my dad was born, so.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So you're at a big show, out of state, hours from home, and you have all this equipment with you. Are you camping or are you getting a hotel?
Hotel.
Hotel. You prefer a hotel over camping?
Yeah.
I think you're the first driver that said that. Is there an advantage to it?
I just like my comfy bed.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not really the camping type.
Okay. No, not a bonfire. I guess you're underage, so not a bonfire with a beer type guy yet, right?
Yeah, I can go out there and sit there, but I definitely like going back to the hotel, being able to shower, get a good night's sleep. I've never really been into sleeping in a tent or a camper or anything like that.
I gotcha. Is it kind of a bear to load up all the equipment and take it back and forth every night, or no?
No. Typically, whenever I go out of town, everything stays right at the track, so it's never been really an issue for me.
I gotcha. Okay.
One nice thing, we had people at the track this year, so we had a couple campers there. I like having people there to kind of watch the stuff.
Right. No. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you guys had campers there, just you didn't stay in them.
Yeah.
Right. Like your pit crew camped, but you're personally in a hotel.
Yep.
Gotcha. So, this is probably my favorite question, and I'm really interested in what you're going to say here. Big show or county fair? Because, and the reason that I'm really intrigued here is because your county fair show is what we discussed. It's just insanely huge. But then again, you've got this, you've got good luck at big shows so far. So what do you think, man?
Honestly, I really like these big shows. Not just because of the everyone there. It's not even necessarily the show itself, but the atmosphere of like Derby. And that's what everyone's there for. And at my county fair, there's that people come to watch. Some people just happen to be at the fair and like, hey, let's go watch. Like that. There's people that gather from all over the country coming to this show specifically to come watch these derbies.
It's like you're running in front of the whole world.
Yeah, the atmosphere at these derbies, there's just nothing like it.
Let me ask you this: when you pull out on the track at a big show, is it going through your mind that you're going to be live streamed, or are you just there to do your job?
No, I really don't think about it too much. I do like the fact of it being on TV just because my first big show, my son was just born like a month before that, so every show I rent it so that he can watch, even being less than a year old.
Right.
But he doesn't get it, but it's just I like the fact of it being live streamed, but it doesn't really get to me.
Right. Yeah, the cameraman, like you're pushing somebody up into the wall right in front of the tower, and you're like, oh yeah, this show's being filmed. I know the feeling. I know what you mean. You're focused and you're there to derby, you know. Once a flag drops, you're not looking at the cameras. You're looking at the cars and you're driving, you know. Okay. So he likes big shows. Okay. All right. Does pineapple belong on pizza? Where do you stand on that?
No, it does not.
It does not. Okay. Okay. All right. I'll give you that one. I don't think it does either, but I'm going to get the one guy that says it does and just grill him. It's going to happen. One of these days it's going to happen. All right. What is your favorite front bumper to run?
Specifically, my favorite bumper is Gage Sumner's Pointies.
Okay. Okay. Even on like maybe the lighter weld cars?
Yeah. It really doesn't help these bone stock cars, I don't think, but I love them. I've had no complaints. I'll weld them on anything. That's what I've ran on both these bone stock cars at Spring X and Mayhem. Now, how much of a difference it made from my dad running his 76, I don't know, but
I got
these
okay.
Whether it be a bone stock build or my mod car, I love those bumpers.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. A lot of guys prefer pointies these days. I do know that the Dead Man Rules, TJ, I think they are getting away from them at big shows, actually. I think there's a little bit of buzz about that. I probably shouldn't say too much. Oops. Sorry, TJ, if you hear this, but I don't know if he's announced that yet or not. But.
At least for the pro stock class,
okay,
there won't be any more.
Good. You've heard that too. Okay. But so if big shows get rid of pointies, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
Obviously, with that being my favorite bumper, I wasn't too excited about it, but
let me ask you this: will it deter you from a show if you can't run a pointy?
No, it won't deter me from the show.
Okay.
I'll figure something out that I'll run up. Maybe I'll build a 76, 74. I'll find something to put on the car. But that right now, this is all I have. I have all Gage's bumpers, just because that's all I run.
You are the hammer, not the nail. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You're the hammer, not the nail.
I'd rather be the hammer than the nail for sure.
Right. Okay. All right. Do you play euchre? Do you play cards?
No.
No. All right. Okay. Like the hunting season, do you hunt much or no? Just it's all derby.
All derby.
That's all derby. All right. All right. So our last question here: proudest win, favorite car built, favorite derby experience. Just basically, your favorite experience derbying, whether, this car was my favorite car to build, or this show was my favorite show to win, or, this place was just packed and rocking and I made a big hit or something. If you had to look back on your derby career, what would be your proudest moment?
My proudest moment, most fun I've ever had was just last night.
Yep.
That was probably the coolest thing for me, being able to take second and third with my dad. Our county fair, we took first, second, third there, but it was a completely different feeling going down to Portland, and me and him getting down to second and third. There was just nothing like it.
Absolutely. My podcast isn't a current events podcast, so most of the guys I interview, the last two have been this way, but most guys I interview, it's not right after a show that they've ran and done well at, so that's more of of 5 years ago, this type of thing happened. Obviously you guys are coming off a big finish down at Mayhem, but
Yeah, other than that, previously the biggest win, that was back in 15, I was telling you that I got my first win with my dad in the passenger seat. That was probably the coolest experience outside of taking second and third.
Did you mention he was in the passenger seat with you before when we talked about it?
I believe I did.
Okay, I must have skipped over it. But so what was it like having him in the passenger seat? Was he like kind of like pointing and being helpful, or was he just kind of hanging on?
Well, he was doing most of the shifting.
Okay.
He reached over with shifting, and then like I said, he's more of the mad dog, where I'm more of the I'm driving to win.
Yep.
So he was reaching up, grabbing my leg, trying to get me to go faster. but yeah, that was all around good time.
I can see Ryan listening to this and just shaking his head like, why me? why a podcast, and why my kid, and why does that have to be about me? But hey, when you work as hard and become as great as he is, people are gonna talk about it, man. I mean, it's not gonna go unnoticed. So, I'll just in advance apologize to Ryan before this podcast even gets uploaded. Yeah, we talked about you a lot tonight, man. But you know what? When you're building at that level, people are gonna notice and talk about it. You know, what do you do?
Yeah, I guess so.
You guys, both of you guys are just like, nah, we're not. All right, okay. I get the vibe, but all right, man. Anybody you want to thank? Any big sponsors? Any pit crew? Your girlfriend, wife? Anybody you want to mention? That anybody you want to just give a shout out to before we close out?
Obviously, I got to thank my dad for obviously helping me get all this, like, with all the knowledge and the time and the money and like everything he's done for me out here. My neighbor Joe Nash, and then everyone else that put time into all these cars and has helped me over the time. But there's just too many of those to name. And one business that's helped me quite a bit was RS Recycling. They sponsor a lot of the parts and consumables for these builds for us. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. This was a really laid back podcast, and this was really a good time. I'm really glad you were able to get on with me tonight.
Yeah, it worked out good for me.
Yeah, I can't wait to get this uploaded, and yeah, this was a lot of fun, man. And I wish you luck on all your next builds. Real quick, what can we expect maybe in the future from the Songalewski garage? Or you don't have to say, but I mean, what?
Honestly, I'm not sure what we're gonna do yet.
Okay.
I'll be at my county fair for sure, but other than that, I don't have any big plans.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to come back to Spring X and Mayhem next year, but I guess time will tell whether I can make that happen or not.
All right, I got you. All right, man, we're gonna sign off. It was a good time talking to you tonight.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you.
Okay.